Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger, and today we're chatting with my new friends, Ernesto and Gina Lopez. So we talk a lot about on this podcast, or I've mentioned it many times, vision boards. And it's something that I have. It's something that I believe in, but having a vision for your life and where you want to go and the dreams God's placed on your heart. Well, Ernesto and Gina have a vision board for their family. So I just met them for the first time just a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, I guess now. And they told me about this, what they're doing in their family. And I said, you guys need to create a course or a membership around that. And so they are. And so I'm excited to be helping them build that out, which is awesome because it's going to bless so many people. But as you know, on this podcast, I like hearing people's stories. And so they came on and talked about their story of how Ernesto had to leave the military because of a medical diagnosis and then out of a job and, having to start a brand new business and just lots of golden nuggets on this episode. Things like, you're either living life by default or design. And I would rather live my life by design. That's where the vision board comes into play. Like, what am I going after? What am I here for? And having a vision board, going through that process will help you figure that out. But there's just so much. I took a lot of notes from this episode, learned a lot from them, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Here's my interview with Ernesto and Gina. All right, guys, welcome to Streams of Income. Thanks so much for doing this with me.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Thank you.
We have Ernesto and Gina Lopez. So I got to know these folks through Terry Savelle Ministries. Terry was on my podcast, but I attended the Next conference and was up on stage talking about Terry's Echelon program. They signed up, and I'm involved with helping Terry grow that and just make that a better program. So they're students of that, as I am too. And so we got to know each other because you guys are launching some really cool stuff that we'll talk about with vision boards, with families, which vision boards are a big thing for me. It's got to have that vision out in front of you. But let's talk about your business, your story. And so you guys just start wherever you want to start and tell us about yourselves.
Absolutely. Go ahead, baby. I want my wife to start off.
All right.
Well, I always like to say that we were your, traditional workers in the sense of, my husband was in the military for 20 years. I worked in the nonprofit world, so we loved that life. We enjoyed it. Just like anything else, it had its good and its bad and its rewarding moments. And we loved that life. We really did. There was, most people say, oh, working for corporate is this horrible thing or working for somebody's horrible thing. But we really enjoyed it. We did well in what we did. We loved it. And unfortunately, about 6-7 years ago now, actually in July, it'll be 7 years ago, my husband had to have a kidney transplant. And so he had to medically retire. So our world was changed in 90 days. Wow. Everything we knew, everything that we thought, we still had about 5 more years to be in the military, so my husband can get into the command that he wanted to do. He was a major and wanted to make it to colonel, and we had about 5 more years to plan it out, and it didn't happen. It changed our life. I mean, literally in 90 days. So we didn't have a lot of planning to do. There wasn't a lot of ways that we could really make changes or do anything. It was really out of our control, and so without making it a super long story, we moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area at that point, and everybody in this area is like an entrepreneur, had multiple businesses. And since my husband was on dialysis and was leading a kidney transplant, he couldn't do a traditional job. And so we say that we started this business on accident, but our success has been on purpose. Because it never was something that we dreamed of doing. We laughed that we never even sold candies. We literally never had any of that background for us. So we embarked in a whole journey that we had never seen. and it changed our life. It's been a journey, but it's been a very rewarding journey. And we're just helping people in a different way at this point, and then finding other ways to keep helping in that sense. So that's my side of the story. That's my vantage point. I don't know how my husband sees it.
Well, if I can jump in here. So the big thing for me is that I entered the military when I was 19 years old, and I retired when I was 40. And the military was my identity. That's who I was. It was the DNA of everything that I was, getting up early in the morning, working out, having authority. And then it's taken away from me in 90 days. And for pretty much a good 2.5 year period, I didn't know who I was. And I was trying to find myself in corporate, different organizations that we are part of at church, and men's groups and things like that, to try to find that camaraderie again. And it was, there was a huge loss of identity for myself. Yeah. And it was a struggle for me. And I know that a lot of people that exit the military and retire, that have spent their entire lives there, they go through the same thing. And there's an identity crisis going on where you're trying to rediscover yourself and figure out who you really are. Yeah. And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today, hopefully. Yeah. And we got into the financial world through a friend of mine who reached out on the day that my son was born, and he said, "Hey, Ernesto, what do you got going on these days?" And I said, "Well, my baby was just born. I was holding him in my arms when he texted me, and we were still in the hospital room." And he was like, "Well, I started this business, and I was checking to see if you were interested in joining me." Mm-hmm. And I was kind of thinking of leaving corporate already and doing something on my own. And it was like the perfect timing, perfect storm, everything aligned at the right time. He caught me at the right moment. And I jumped in with both feet, and almost simultaneously to that, I started dialysis. And so it was the perfect timing for my health situation and all the other things that were going on in our lives. And that was the seed that we needed to launch. And fast forward, this was in 2016. So now we're 6 years into this, and we're some of the top people in our entire company. Five Rings Financial is our company. Awesome. Last year we were number 9 overall in the company out of 15,000 representatives, and number 3 the year before. So we've been in the top 10 for like the last 2 years, but it's a lot of work to get there. Wow. And so our journey has been dramatic, and there's been plenty of obstacles, ups and downs. Not sure if this is going to be our long-term path. And but I'd say the one constant is that we work together, and we've worked on a common goal to get there and to work together as a team. Even just getting out of the house in the morning it takes a lot of teamwork to get our kids out of the house. And but we're always doing this together. And that's, to me, that's the common theme. And when we're apart, like this past weekend, I went to New York City, and we feel like we're disconnected and we're off balance because we're away from each other, because we're so used to being around each other all the time.
That's so true. That's the same way with me and my wife too. Wow. I want to ask you real quick. So, being you're the provider, men usually, you see yourselves as the provider of the home and all that. So, without talking the actual dollars, and the military takes really good care of folks. But were you facing a massive pay cut as well during that time?
From leaving the military, or
was there? I mean, actually, I know you probably got a pension and stuff, but was there a certain? Was there some financial stress as well during that 90 days?
No, not initially. So I have my pension, and then I stepped into a 6-figure job, and so it was actually it increased our income.
Oh, nice! Wow,
for that 9-month period, and then as soon as I left my corporate job because I couldn't work.
Then we felt it.
Yeah. Okay. Then you felt it.
Then we felt it.
It was a 60% drop in our income, and so we really, really felt it.
What was the time frame between leaving your corporate job to becoming the financial advisors that you guys are now?
It was almost simultaneous because he reached out to me before I left.
Okay. But it took you some time to build up that business.
Oh, absolutely.
It took. We didn't know anybody in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We had, like I said, we're coming from, networking out here was not a word that we had ever heard of, in the military or even in the nonprofit world, where you network with other other ministries or other community members, but not in the level of networking when you're trying to build a business or the way you got to network. It was a whole different thing at that point. So
your income dropped 60%. And how long did it take you to get it back up to where it was even with your corporate job that you just left? Approximately.
I would say, so and this is what we always tell entrepreneurs who are trying to, find this, entrepreneurial world that seems so glamorous. And it does have its glamorous moments.
Sure.
But I would say that in the 7 years, there was a year that he was working part-time and I was working part-time, like at different times, because our goal, and we'll talk a lot, we had a vision, right? We wanted to pay off our debt because once he got sick and, thank God that he got a kidney transplant through a lady through our church, like such a beautiful story of how God really was taking care of us. But even though because we didn't have any debt. We literally, when everything happened, we were living what you're supposed to do. Have the right investments, do this, don't have any debt. We were living that, and so when it all of a sudden is taken away from you and all of a sudden there's debt and there's all these things coming your way, it's like, we're never going to get out of this. And so I would say for the first 2 years, we were both, 1 year he was working, 1 year I was working, but we had a goal to pay off the debt first. So we wouldn't add more debt to our, the business, because you have to put some money into that. And so I think once that debt was paid, then I think I was at almost year 3, almost 4. I feel it finally where our head was above water. And then of course we got better with our money, what we need to do, what we got to change, what are some things that habits that we had to change that we didn't know we had. And so a lot of learning happened.
4 years of working to
Absolutely.
Get back.
Yeah. One thing that I want to emphasize here is that there's a lot of people that have gone through the same health situation as us, and it may not be a kidney disease; it could be cancer or anything else. And one of the stats that we share with our in our classes and in our Money 101 classes and our Why Women Wealth is that 60% of bankruptcies happen because somebody gets sick. So you could be doing all the right things financially. You could be doing on the right path, saving a good amount of money, doing 15-20% of your income into a investment type vehicle, and get sick, and then now you're spending all of your life savings in order to keep yourself alive. And to pay your bills. And so that's one of the things that we specialize in. And it's so one of the, as a comprehensive financial plan, we do something called living benefits life insurance, which can advance money out of a term policy to cover those needs. So if you got sick like I did, they would have, if I had $1 million term policy, I would have gotten multiple 6 figures, like $750,000 in cash put into my hands because I had an end stage renal disease. And so those are something that a lot of people don't even know that exists. And so at a minimum, if you're covering yourself with that, you're going to protect yourself, because most people are going to get sick before they die. And so, and technology, medicine has advanced so much that people are staying alive. Even if they get a critical illness, they're still staying alive.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So you guys are, this is how I talked about, like, it could go so many different directions. I want to get into your vision stuff because I'm sure that'll be the answer to this, but
absolutely,
you guys are top producers in your company. And so, whether I'm selling on Amazon or I'm, building a personal brand, I want to be at the top. I want to, I want to do well. What are some of the things that you guys have learned that have helped you do that? Like, if somebody asks you, how did you get into the top 10 of your company? Like, what's the steps? I'm sure there's a lot of discipline and vision, which we want to get into, but what are some of the things, if you had to list some of the keys to your success in your financial company, what would you say they are?
Go ahead, love.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
For number one is the vision. Like, what I think, regardless of what type of entrepreneur you want to be in whatever business, you got to know what that looks like, income wise, time wise, what that's going to look like. You have to support of your family around you, because for us, it's good because we're doing it together and we can kind of, come together and say, hey, here's some things that we're going to look at. This is the season that we're in. Here's what we got to do or we got to change. It takes time, even working together. But if you're working by yourself and you're like, I want my partner, my spouse, whatever, to support me, then you need to know where you're going so they know what to support. And so early on, when I mentioned debt was the first thing we wanted to pay, like, that was like the vision of it. We got to pay off this debt first.
And your vision changes, doesn't it? Because once you hit that, once you got debt free, now then it's like, okay, now we want to do this. And now you get there. Okay, now I want to do this.
Absolutely. If I can jump in right here, babe. One of the things that and my wife has I believe God gave her this revelation way before he gave it to me. Because we talk about vision, and a lot of people hear this vision, you got to have vision, and they don't know what that means. Michael Todd says that if you don't write it down, then it's just in your imagination. And a lot of people say, well, I have a vision. Okay, well, show it to me. Show me what you have. And my wife had written down, we're debt free, we're paying this off, and step by step how we're going to get there. And before this whole vision thing came to life for us, she already had it in her heart, and she was leading us in that vision and saying, no, we're going to be disciplined. We're going to make a sandwich before we leave the house so that we can be debt free, and not go eat out at, every time we go to a network or meet with somebody. And so writing it down is a key part to the vision piece, because if you don't write it down, it's just in your imagination.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. So I would say, and that's a big thing, is just understanding first what's the vision, so you know what you're working towards. So when you have those days when you're like, man, this is hard, then it's in front of you, right? We're paying off debt. We're taking the sandwich to work because we're paying off debt. Like, it's going to pay off way sooner.
It's your why. The why am I doing?
Yeah, it's our why.
Yeah, and there's resistance too. I mean, we felt a lot of resistance.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't like we were like, yes, we want to do this together. We had the same vision, but when we're trying to do it together, it's just like, it's painful. It's easier to drive by the Chick-fil-A, it's just natural human trying to change their habit. But I would say the vision is the first thing, knowing what that looks like, because in entrepreneurship, everybody just gets very caught up on, I want to be the $1 million producer. I want to do this. But like, you could have a very good, our CEO is good. I always saying entrepreneurship has a very great middle class, a great 100%, 100%, 100,000, 200,000. Like, there's a good, very good middle class that you can live very well. You don't have to be a number 10. You don't have to be a millionaire. You could live a very comfortable freedom life on entrepreneurship. But I think we get so caught up on like just a glamour, big 1 million or millionaire, whatever, versus understanding like there's a big wide thing in there. So I would say that has been the big thing. Two, I would say making sure you have the support. So like in our case, it's our family. We got to know the season that we're in, and being honest is like, hey, like, the kids are in summer. What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Who's doing what? Right. And so that way it's not one person that feels the load. It's a combination. And then number 3, I would say that I see, and it could just be, my husband might have other things, but what I see is we meet every week, and it took a while to meet of where we're at. What is the goal financially? Let's look at the stuff now, because it's the little changes that get you to those goals, right? It's not the one quantum leap. It's literally one step at a time. But having those hard conversations, whether it's with your spouse or your coworker or your partner in business, you have to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I think a word that exactly what she said, worded another way, is visit with your vision often. And one of the things, and I have mine right here next to me, I have my vision board. But when we do our weekly meetings, we sit down and we revisit this, and we say, hey, what's the vision? Write it down and make it plain so that he that reads it can run. And so we're reviewing it. We're looking at it. And one of the things we started doing recently is when we do that, before we meet, we talk about some things that we're grateful for in our lives, so that we get ourselves in the right frame of mind. Because when you start talking about finances and you start talking about business strategies, and we have different opposing ideas, there can be conflict. And so if we bring ourselves into a spirit of gratitude and gratefulness, then we're less likely to fight with each other and have disagreements. And then the other thing that we started doing is we started forgiving people. So maybe there might be somebody that offended us recently, or somebody that that maybe we're not on good terms with right now. We pray for them and we say, hey, we want to bring that spirit of offense out and root it out of our life, so that way we can grow and we can get better. And so that's helped us a ton.
That's awesome. Yeah. Has any of your military experience brought into this? Like, I'm sure, military, I think of rigidity and discipline, and has that helped you guys too in this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's given us the structure. And even though Gina wasn't in the military, she definitely gets the remnants and what would they call it? If there's a blast radius, she's gotten a lot of that and a lot of the discipline and the terminology and the way of thinking of taking territory. And so we see the world differently. Even when we do our presentations, we're always thinking in how are we going to increase our territory? How are we going to take dominion? How are we going to, basically say this is our area that God has given us and take authority over it.
That's so good, man.
And I would say that on the military side too, for my husband's a big thinker, like big dream. Yeah. So for him, doing a business was not scary because he's like, I've done the scarier thing. Like, this is like, we can go with it. Let's just run. Right. So for him, it's like, let's do this, let's go. So I think having that ability to just like, let's just go with it and then kind of see it and then see, okay, slowly figuring out, oh, this is our territory. This is what we can do. Yeah. But I think the other big thing that we've always told about ourselves, because the military forces you to always be adaptable to the situation and the circumstances, because your life can change quickly. You know that you're going to be somewhere temporary and then it moves and then you move and then he deploys. And so like, you got to constantly be knowing what's around you. And so I think just that adaptability in our business has helped, being able to be adaptable, when things happen, when things shift, or let's try this, let's try that, without being so scared of it, because we're like, things are going to change. So we have to go with it.
Yes,
absolutely. One of the things, and I know that you're connected with a lot of entrepreneurs. So the people that are listening to this, if you're in business with your spouse, it's important for you to realize each other's strengths and weaknesses. My strength is thinking big and say, let's just go, let's build everything in flight. And I've got this huge vision of where we're going and how we're going to do all these grand things. Yeah. And I know that it scares my wife. Like, oh, you don't have a plan. How are we going to get there? But when she comes into the equation and says, hey, let's put together a plan. So she kind of brings me back down to earth. Mm-hmm. I still have a big vision, but maybe it's like in the lower atmosphere instead of like up in the stars, And so, knowing the strengths of your spouse and knowing that your strengths and weaknesses work together is huge, because I believe that she's kept me from hurting myself and hurting our family financially by saying, hey, let's think about this. Let's really figure out if this is realistic. And knowing what your wife, your business partner, whoever's strengths are, is going to help you and benefit your business, not hurt you.
Well, and vice versa. I mean, it's the same thing with me. I could get caught up on the details, right? You could be so caught on the details that you never do anything, right? Because like, I want to get this 100% versus just going with it and just saying it's going to work out, it's going to work out. And so I think it's been a really good balance in those situations where I need to just go, and then vice versa. There are moments he's like, I need to like pause. But even if you work by yourself, you need to know what those strengths and weaknesses are. And it's not right or wrong. It's just knowing that we all have them, and it's important to know them. And you don't know them right away. I think it took us a while to figure out, because I think in the beginning it's like, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it this way? And there's a lot of this back and forth versus, because you see the world this way, I see the world this way. Okay, how do we combine that?
That's so good. We could have a whole other episode just on how to work with your spouse. Because
if I can share a quick stat,
go for it.
Quick stat. So we were plugged into a community for years. One of the stats that she would always share is that just a traditional marriage that don't work together, you have a 50% chance of getting divorced. Just those are the nationwide numbers. Okay. 50% of marriages fail. Wow. If you work together, it goes up to 90%.
Oh my gosh, really?
And so you almost have to be 2 times more diligent. You have to be two times more intentional about investing into your marriage, working on your communication skills, making sure that you understand how to get better at talking to each other and drawing those clear lines of delineation of, hey, we're not working right now. We're not talking about business. We're being husband and wife. That's so important. And when you're cognizant of the fact that
it's hard,
you could be headed down a path of destruction, and just the fact that you work together could end up dissolving your marriage. You have to work 10 times harder just to keep it together.
Wow. Give me some quick tips on that. Cause I like, you guys are entrepreneurs. So you're always probably, I don't know if any of you are, Ernesto, I'm sure you're like this for sure. Cause you're like me with the big picture. Let's just start flying and we'll build this plane as we're flying. That's definitely how I operate. So how do you, I'm sure your brain's always thinking of new ideas, or or maybe you too, Gina. You're always thinking of
All
new
the
business
time.
ideas, and this would be fun. And it's hard to turn off the business brain. So how do you do that and be intentional about like, this is family time? We're not talking business here.
You want me to take that one?
Go for it, and I'll just jump on.
So we've been very intentional about investing, and when I say investing, I mean monetarily investing into our marriage. Even early on, before we could even afford it, we were paying money to get coached in our marriage and learning how to communicate with each other. And we've been doing this for years. I'd say it's been 5-6 years now, where every single year we're paying, good money to go and learn from somebody that can teach us how to communicate, how to set those time periods, those blocks of, hey, we're not talking about business right here. To go on dates and not turn it into a business meeting. To actually have some communication. One of the biggest questions that I think is so powerful for people that work together is, hey babe, what's your biggest fear? Ask your spouse, what's their biggest fear? And then shut up and listen and not try to correct it, not try to fix the problem. Not try to say, well, why do you feel that way? You shouldn't be feeling that way. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of telling my wife, well, why do you feel that way? You shouldn't feel that way. We got this and we got this. But she's genuinely expressing a concern, a fear that she has in her heart. And when you seek to understand your spouse, there's intimacy, there's connectedness, and you're not talking about business. You're talking about your feelings and the things that are inside of you. And it doesn't take that long. You could do that for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And it can be at the end of the day so that you guys can actually feel connected. And when you feel connected, it leads to other fun stuff in the marriage. So
that's another podcast.
That's a whole
another podcast.
But I mean, that's where the
podcast.
That's where the intimacy is. That's where we actually feel
it's in conflict. It's in the conflict moments. Exactly. But I think so just to make that a very simple idea for anybody who works together, or even if you don't, the people that help us a lot and they do conferences, it's our friend Dr. Brittany Lashua and her husband Josh Lashua, and their motto is same team. And so whether you're having a conversation, remind yourself you guys are on the same team. And I think sometimes we forget that we are on the same team. And so when we're having conflict, we're always thinking we're against each other. But at the end of the day, it's that's kind of the things, we're in the same team. We're on this business together. We're in this family together. We're in these situations are together. It's not a separate thing. And I think when we feel separated like that, then that's where more of that tension feels, versus reminding ourselves wait a minute, we're married, we're together, we are in the same team. And so reminding ourselves that our differences in opinion doesn't necessarily mean we're an opposite team. It just means that, we just see the world differently, and it's okay. We don't have to get it on each other's same page 100%. You got to think like I do, or I got to think like you do. But at the end of the day, the core part of it is we're on the same team, and we're for the same vision. We're here for the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And it's I would say it's my number one favorite book to read, because it makes me realize how we can drift off of path, and the enemy is always trying to get us to change course just a little bit. And the whole premise of the book is he's interviewing, he's cross-examining Satan he's on a witness stand, and Satan has no choice but to reveal all of his secrets. And he asks him, at what point did you lose power over me? So Napoleon Hill is the one interviewing him. And he says, the minute that you formed a mastermind with your wife, I lost power over you. So literally let that sink in. That the minute you and your wife start thinking as one, the enemy loses power over you, because God put you together. You're thinking as one mind. Wow. And when you think as one mind, now you're not fighting against each other. You're saying, I'm not going to acknowledge the principalities and the enemy forces that are around me. We're one person, and the enemy literally loses hold of you. Wow. And that unity breeds a whole different thing in your family. Good things can flow out of it. Our mentor used to tell us that everything good in your business and your family, financially, comes from a healthy marriage.
Yes.
Everything springs out of that. And when you have that, you can be unstoppable.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. I tell my wife too that we have a great marriage and we can always be better. I'm sure. It sounds like you guys have a great marriage too. And you're working hard and actually investing time and resources to make it better. But I tell her I'm thankful for our great marriage, because I can't imagine, like, even if I was like 10 times wealthier than I am now, and if we had a horrible marriage, life would be horrible. It happens here at home makes or breaks my happiness. I can't imagine having like hating waking up next to her, hating that, oh man, did I make a mistake? If I I know there's people out there, and there's, God can help you and fix your marriage. So there's restoration available, but I'm just grateful that I don't have to, that we're just, things are good there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, and it goes back to the vision, right?
Yes.
The vision of your marriage, the vision of your family. What do you want it to be like? And I think that's something that we don't get taught a lot. And if you are in the church world, our favorite, verse is, people without a vision perish. And in the beginning, as a new follower of God or Jesus, is like, what does that mean? It's kind of very high level thinking, I would say, because you're kind of like, what do you mean you perish? Okay, you die. All right. But you don't understand that it could be like real death or just slow death, in the small things. And so I think that's where a lot of, I would say for us, is just like the vision of what we want for our family. And like I said, it didn't happen right away, but it's like, man, vision is so important in family. And well, for us, we saw vision because we help people with money. So we're like, you have to have a vision for your money. You have to have a vision for your money. But naturally that opened up, well, do you have a vision for this? Do you have a vision for that? And it's like, what are you talking about? It's like foreign concept.
Yeah. Let's dig into that, because that's exactly where I wanted to end up the podcast here and make sure we touched on that as deep as you want to. So we've had Terry on, our mutual friend, Terry Savelle-Foy, talking about vision boards, and people are now, I'm sure there's a lot of people talking about it and having goals, but it could be an actual vision board, like on my wall, like I have it over here. You showed me yours. It could be on your phone. It could be digital. It could be whatever. It just needs to be something that you're seeing a lot. And we know it for personally, it's something that people know to do it as your own individual, but you guys brought it to another level, and you have a vision board for your family. So tell me about what that even looks like.
Yes. So the kind of going back to our foundation is always God. And so the Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. And so we always teach our family, well, if that's true, then the opposite is also true. Mm-hmm. Where there is an abundance of vision, the people flourish. And so we know that if we counterbalance that and say, if we do have a vision and we're constantly talking about our vision and we're keeping it right in front of our eyes, then we're going to flourish, and we're going to be able to accomplish everything we want as a family. We're going to be able to teach our kids vision. And when they have vision, then it reproduces itself, and then our grandkids will have vision, and it'll create a generation of Lopez's that are focused on vision, and they know how to create things out of their mind and not just let the world happen to them.
Yeah. Wow. How do you guys do a vision as a family? You just see me sit around a table and just have each person input. If I did that with my son, he'd be like, I want to be Iron Man. Like, well, okay. So we'll put that on I'd still have fun. Would want to encourage him in the process and not say, oh, that's a dumb idea, Callan. So what does that look like as a family? I can imagine my wife and I sitting together and doing this.
Oh yeah.
But when you got kids involved, it gets a little bit more, maybe weird. If they're young.
It's a little more complex. Yeah. It's more complex, and it's a little more, there's a little more things you have to handle. But just to rewind a little bit. So we have enjoyed vision boards in the past. I would say for me, where it really struck me was watching and following Terry Savelle-Foy Ministries. And I never seen her until 7 years ago that she came to our church, and she had all these props and she kept talking about vision. And I was like, okay, like I've never heard it this way. This makes a lot of sense. And I've never looked at my vision boards that way. And at that point I hadn't done one in a while. Yeah. And then I think that I think maybe like I would say like after that year, after he got, my husband got his transplant, and we were kind of, in a good spot, so to speak. We kind of just really started taking this really seriously, because at the church we go to, our pastor always says we're either living life by default or by design. So either it's just you're letting life happen for you, or you're actually designing your life. And so with the business, naturally you have to have some vision, right? Like you just have to have some goals. And so that part was, I would say, easy. And I think through the year, we were like, okay, well, what does that mean for our family? And the funny thing is that my husband approached us, even though we both as individuals had understood vision. Yeah. He approached our family one day. He's like, hey, we're going to have a family vision board day. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I've always done vision boards. Like, why are we doing it now? Right. The lovely wife that I am. And so I was like, okay. And so we brought our oldest daughter. We have 3 kids. At that time, we only had our 2. Our oldest is 24 now. And we have our 6-year-old son and our 2-year-old daughter. Uh-huh. And so he's like, he went to go get all the materials. And so when I see my husband like taking that type of action, I'm like, okay, this guy is serious. Like he's really like taking this like another level that I didn't expect, because I'm like, oh, we're just going to do our vision board like normally you do. Mm-hmm. But he actually had it planned out. And so he's like, this is the day we're going to do it. I don't want you to cook. I love cooking. Just I enjoy cooking. And so he's like, we're not going to cook that day. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit around and we're going to have this plan now. And I was like, okay. And so again, my husband's a vision guy. So for him to be like, I have this plan, I'm like, okay. So he sits us down and, he had written it down on Word and said, here's what we're going to do. And he literally outlined, here's pretty much what our core values are going to be. This is what we're trying to be as a family. Like, here's who we are. And then individually we'll do our own thing. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, that first year we laughed because we're kind of like, me and my daughter are like, okay, but as the conversation started of like, well, what does this mean to you, Yasmin, who's at that time was, 18, 19 years old, well, vision, and what does God mean to you in the sense, and having those conversations, right? And I think shifted so many things, because you're like, you don't realize that our kids are looking at things so different than what we are, even though we're teaching them, mm-hmm. or we're going to the same church, we're talking about the same things, but what it means to them at that point in their life and through their eyes and what God is doing for them is so different, right? Yeah. So that really just opened up for the last 5 years of like making it even a little more detailed of like, well, what do we stand for? What is the word that we want to talk about? And I know people know about vision boards, and either you feel like, oh, it's a little woo-woo, or that doesn't work. Because there is intention that has to be put into it. And I think that's where sometimes it's missed, that there has to be intention. It's nice to put the vision board together. I say that's the cherry on top. Yeah. Really, it's the process. And that's what my husband really detailed very well. And his whole heart behind it was, the man has to be equipped. How do you equip a family? It's okay that we're equipped to get differently with our vision boards, but how do we bring all of that together and be like, this is who we stand for, and this is what we're about, and this is what we want our little kids to be. And so when you're talking about the kids, it's like, they're little and they don't understand a lot of things, but like even a basic thing that we put on our son's vision board, and you might laugh and people might laugh about it, but I'm like, my son, since he was 1, brushing teeth was like pulling, like, every day was like, I felt like, oh my God, here's the biggest struggle of my day. He just would refuse it. And we just started putting it. Our son brushes his teeth, that he's respectful. We put him to sleep because he doesn't like to sleep, and neither did my little one. So it's like just the vision of like, they're going to be peaceful sleepers. They're going to stay asleep. They're going to brush their teeth. They're going to eat veggies. Bilingual is huge in our family. So they're going to be bilingual speakers. And so very kind of basic. And of course I have like a Spider-Man for them. I added them that they're going to be in sports. We have them with reading books, that they're going to be book readers. Right. Yeah. So I'm saying a lot of those details, but I'm saying it's the process and the conversation that you have, that really brings it together. Sorry, I said a lot, but
you're good. And even when they're little, Ryan, they have desires in their heart to go visit places. Yeah. My son was, it's been probably 3 years, but 3 years now, 2.5 years that we went to Colorado. And he always calls it in Spanish. He says the Casa de Nieve, which means the snow house. Uh-huh. But he always remembers the Casa de Nieve, because we planned out our vision. We went to Colorado, we rented a cabin in the snow, and we did our vision planning there and in a different place. And that place is forever etched in his heart. That's so cool. And so that anchors them to remember that's part of their vision. And then we ask our kids, where do we want to travel this year as a family? Where do we want to go for our next vision trip? And then so every year we're already thinking about, well, we'd like to go to the beach, or we'd like to go to this country or wherever, but they have buy-in in it. And when they have buy-in, then you have their attention.
That's so good. On Gina, on some of the things you mentioned, like they're going to be good sleepers and they're going to eat their vegetables. Some people would say, "No, that's just." I mean, you're just kind of throwing out that's like a big, huge. Like, how do you? Of course, it would be nice for that to happen, but what are the? And this goes into any vision board, because I have some things on my wall that I know how I'm going to achieve it, and like working out, I know what I need to do to have a better figure and to feel healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come down to them becoming better sleepers, especially with the kid version of this? How do you, what's the practical things to make that happen? And I know there's a difference between like, God, this is on my heart. There's a place in your vision board for vision for things that are like, I have no idea how this is going to happen. This is on my board. And this is something that I'm believing for. This is a desire in my heart. I have no clue what the steps are. And so I'm just putting that up there as just like, God, if you can make this happen, that's cool. But there's other things that like, I know what I need to do to make happen. So when you're with your kids, how does that look like? What does that look like with eating their veggies and, sleeping better?
So it goes back to the intention, right? So if I say, because both of our kids they're going to be, they're going to love books, and have a picture of them. Well, guess what? I naturally take them to go see books. I naturally take maybe places that I don't necessarily, it's easier to take them to the park, and we do that as well, because we want them to be outside people too. So we take them to the park, we take them to the library, and we look through the books. We look through the books, make sure that we model that behavior. So they make sure that we're looking at books and kind of having the conversation of the books and why we're looking at it. Our 2-year-old, she has her little books, and I have them. I used to put them like in her closet, and this year I actually put them in front of her bed. So when she walks in, there's an intention of like, what am I supposed to do in here? Oh, we have books, and we look at them. And I would say also when it comes to vision boards, and even something that's simple, I feel like sometimes even myself, I get in that pressure, like I have to model it all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But no, it's really just the intention of like, hey, go bring a book, or there's a time for reading. So it's summer and it's a little, our schedules are a little crazier because they're out of school, but setting the intention, putting veggies, my son, there's new things. This year he loves salads. It's the funniest thing. Wow. He loves salads. He loves a Caesar salad. And so again, I didn't do all this craziness. I just simply presented it to him. And of course he's going to say no in the beginning. I don't like it. And then he slowly started trying it. Oh, I like green beans. Oh, I like this. So it's just the intention that you're setting on the very basic things, versus feeling like you said, there's some things that are just going to naturally happen and God will put his hand on it and make it happen. And on the sleeping side, that's still, with our little one, a little harder because she is 2, but I have to still set the intention, and we've changed her routine as many ways as we can. And it could just be because she's 2, but I still want to set the tone that we're going to go to sleep and she's going to be a peaceful sleeper, and that she's not going to wake up through the night, and just kind of allow that to be what it is without, because a lot of times it's just more frustrating than you're like, oh, I got to wake up. But it's like, no, my daughter's a peaceful sleeper and she's not going to wake up, and we're praying at night that she's going to stay asleep. Yeah.
That's so good.
So I said a lot for that, but
that's good.
It's really setting the intention. And, I forget the name of his name, babe from Atomic Habits, the book.
Oh, James Clear.
James Clear says when you're trying to set the tone, and we just read that last year, and I was like, set the intention in the room, right? So if I want my kids to be readers, make sure I put books around them, right, where they're visible, where they could see it. If I want them to eat healthy, I got to present those things in that room, or what I want them to do at that point, just to make it a little bit more easier versus forcing it.
Right.
And one of the things I wanted to add, is our kids are not at that stage in their life where they have that thought of, okay, I'm going to project myself into the future. I'm going to start changing the way that I think. And it's our responsibility to control their emotions. It's our responsibility to speak into them, to teach them how to speak certain things over themselves. Hey, I'm a good sleeper. I'm a good reader, and to help them and to coach them on how to speak life over themselves and to really project themselves in the future. It's our responsibility to set the environment for them to have good habits. One of the things I started doing with our son is he likes Sing 1 and Sing 2, and there's songs in there that he likes. And so I'll play a song for him in the morning, and he automatically pops out of bed. He loves
music.
And he starts getting ready. And I say, okay, we're going to play the song, the the one from Sing, and I'll say, okay, you have until the song is over to get dressed, brush your teeth, and it becoms a game for him, and he gets excited about it, and he's dancing while he's putting his clothes and his socks on and brushing his teeth, and but he knows the song's only like 2 minutes long, but now it becomes something fun instead of something that I'm getting mad at him, losing my cool, wasting all this time trying to coerce him into doing what I want him to do, when I can make it into something fun that he enjoys. And so you really have to understand your kid's personality too, because he's a fun type of personality, and music moves him. And so if he hears music, he's in.
That's so cool. That's awesome. All right. How does this, your vision board, because you guys are teaching a course on this that I'm excited for, because that's going to change a lot of families, but what's been pre-vision board for your family? And you said you've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. What does your family life look like now that you don't think it would have looked like had you not done a family vision board?
Wow. Fruit. You just have to follow the fruit. If you're not a believer in this and you're like, oh, that's hokey, do it. Have some faith. Write stuff down. Write things down that you're believing for, and then take action behind it. Terry Savelle always teaches us that you can have a vision, but you have to apply some action to it too.
Right.
And start doing your part to manifest this. Can't just sit in your room and hope that it's going to happen because you put it on a vision board. Right. You have to actually get yourself out there and have some activity that surrounds your vision. And I forgot where I was going with that. Well, can you take me back to the question? Because I kind of
just like, what are some things that have happened in your life that you just like, what does your family look like now that you don't think it probably would have looked like had you not had a vision board?
So just to put things into context, when we first started doing vision planning days, we had very little money. And so we did it at our kitchen table. We ordered pizza, and it was just our family just sitting around our kitchen table, just talking about our dreams and where we wanted to go. And you fast forward 3 years after that, and we're going on a trip to Colorado and renting a cabin and not putting it on credit and paying for all of it in cash and having the time of our life, and then thinking and planning in Colorado what we're going to do the following year. And then we go to Cancun the following year. And it's like every year the vision gets bigger, and there's so much fruit in not just our lives, but in our kids' lives. To see my 24-year-old, go on a foreign exchange study abroad, that she put on there that she didn't even realize that she put on her vision board, and she manifested
little picture she put.
She manifested it in her own life. And there's been instances where, she got a job that she was believing for, and all things that we put into our vision. And when we first started, again, we're in debt, trying to pay off debt. We're 100% debt free now. We bought a house, a really nice house in the North Lake area. We're living, well below our means. We're still top producers in our company. Starting this business, our marriage is flourishing. Just so many good things in our life that we're proud of, and we don't want to take credit for it and say that it's because of just our vision. We know that God is behind this, but when our vision aligns with God, there's fruit, and when you see fruit, you're going to keep doing it.
And if I can add to that, I would say on like basic things, sometimes, a lot of, again, our detailed people like myself is like, all right, okay, you went on trips. What else? Like, give me some details on what other things have happened. And so marriage for us is a big thing. So we made sure that we were intentional. Like, what does marriage look like for us? Well, we want more intimacy, and that doesn't necessarily mean that. It means, we need to hold hands a little more. And that's the vision. Make sure we're touching each other. For 3 years, I had it in my vision board that I wanted an Infiniti QX80, and I wanted to pay it cash. For 3 years, I had that on my vision board, and it was like and when it happened, I literally got it. When we went to go get it, I sat on there, and it was like, I know Terry Savelle talks about it, where it's like, oh, are you shocked at what happened? It's like, no, literally when I sat there, I knew that like it was always mine. Like I knew it because I had envisioned it. I knew how it was going to be. I had already sat in one. And so it was like, yep, this is my car.
And we paid it in cash.
And we paid it in cash, like exactly. And there was a certain amount that we said, we're not willing to pay more than this. We paid that in cash. Our debt was one of the big ones. Serving in our ministry, we did marriage ministry. That was part of like something that we wanted to be a little more intentional in the marriage ministry. And so, we took action, a lot of that, but God did put vision into a lot of other things and people and friendships that came out of that. The last 2 years, I've been very intentional in putting that I want to have the best neighbor in my neighborhood. Like I have a lot of good friends, but I'm like, I want a great neighbor next to me. Like that's my vision. So I say all that because it's easy to look at just the monetary side, like the house, the car, the vacation, but it could be as simple as like, man, I just want to make a really good friend in my neighborhood that has kids the same age that we can do life together. Or it's maybe you're the first time going back to church. We have our daughter 2 years ago brought her friends to do their vision board with us. And I mean, and they loved it, and seeing their stuff happen. It's just really neat to see, because some of it is just very basic. Our daughter right now, 24, she this year put it so plain on like the type of man that she wants, what kind of, marriage she wants. And it's interesting of how just things align, and God removes a lot of the stuff that shouldn't be in her life to allow that to happen. And so again, it doesn't have to be the big stuff. It's literally your small things that I think sometimes are just more important than anything else.
Yeah. So you guys have had people that have come to you and said that, or have taken notice on your life, and they've heard you do vision boards and think it's really cool, and have encouraged you. Even before I met you, you said people were coming to you saying that you should teach this process. So you decided to do that. So tell me about your vision for your membership community that you're going to do, and then tell people how they can jump in.
We had a lot of people come to us and say, hey, you should.
I can hear you guys.
I would love to pay you to come and coach us on how to do this vision planning for our families, and to really understand how to piece this together, and give us the nuts and bolts of how this can happen. And then we visited with you, and you're like, that should be a course. There should be an online course. And so that's where really it was birthed, and really just the fact that you spoke that, and it was like a light that went on inside of us. And it was never the intention to monetize this. It was never the intention to create modules or anything like that. It was for our family. And again, fruit will attract other people. We've had friends that have asked us to go on our vision trips when we went to Cancun, and they accompanied us, and there was 2 families that came with us. And I probably should have noticed it then. But there was fruit that people were seeing, and they said, hey, I want to be part of this. And then to see people come say, hey, I want you to coach me. I want you to teach me on how to be part of this vision planning stuff. There were indicators that people wanted what we were doing, and awesome. It was beautiful for us. And then you were just like the person that pushed us over the edge to say, hey, you can actually turn this into a course where people can benefit from it. And that's how we put this together. So we're calling it Vision 101. Okay. And that's how we are going to teach people the basics of not just having a personal vision, but really teaching your family how to have a vision and how to create their own vision for themselves. And then bringing it together collectively, so that when my daughter, when we first started this, was 18, when she says, hey, I'm believing for these things in my life, now we get to come into agreement with her, because we know when 2 or more come into agreement that we can do anything. We can create something out of nothing. And now we're aligned with her vision. She's aligned with our vision. Yes. And then the long-term goal on this is that it creates generational vision, that our kids are understanding how this is going to work. Our kids are creating vision. And then when my grandkids are born, when son-in-laws come into the picture, when daughter-in-laws come into the picture, they're coming in and they're understanding our culture, so that it creates more fruit. And when people see fruit coming from my kids, from our kids, from their kids, and it just creates generational fruit. I believe our family will be unstoppable, and that there's a lot of craziness in the world. There's a lot of people that are trying to dictate what our vision should be in the world, and we're not going to stand for that. We're not going to be the family that just lets the world happen to us. We believe and we teach our kids that we're going to happen to the world. Yes. And that's something that is so important to us. And I believe that our kids will lead when there's chaos, that our kids will have enough vision that they can lead through the chaos, and they'll be the people that are being transformational during times of chaos, during times of uncertainty. They'll be the people that will rise to the top because of their vision. Amen. And so that's what we're doing. That's the long-term vision. And but this doesn't grow in your heart the first time you do it. Once you start seeing this and seeing the impact of your family, you'll say, wow, this is way bigger than just doing, this is a product. This thing is, this is an end state of putting your ideas on. It's the praying, it's the thinking, it's the praying over your kids, and the speaking life over them. And and bringing the greatness out of them that really makes this worthwhile.
That's so cool, man. She just texted and said that her internet went out, so
that's okay. We can continue.
We're good. No, we're good. I think I got what we need here. This has been awesome. The link will be in the show notes for Absolutely. Your new program. And I'm excited for you because I think it's going to just bless a lot of families, and it's unique. I mean, I hear a lot of people talk about vision boards, but I'm sure there's somebody out there, but you are creating something that's going to bless not just individuals, but families and then their legacy. So it's super cool. I'm excited to help
Absolutely.
you any way I can.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to add, and I don't think we mentioned this, is that that we are aligning with Terry Savelle Foy Ministries.
Yes.
And because of our alignment and because of the alignments through you and her, the Terry Savelle Vision course is going to be included.
Yes.
For our members for free. And so if you're listening to this and you hear about our vision course and you're excited about it, when you sign up for our course, you're also going to get Terry Savelle's vision course for free.
Yes.
And that's for the people that sign up in the first 3 months. So we're really excited about getting this launched and really helping lots of families and teaching them how to lead. There's a lot of things that we're going to do in the future and guests, and we're just really excited about what this can grow into. And we know that the sky's the limit because we have vision.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on with me, and
absolutely,
we'll chat soon. We'll stay in touch, and excited to see your membership launch. So,
yes, sir. We love you. We love the fact that you're aligned with us, and you're such a blessing to us. And thank you for everything that you are and what you bring to our family and to the marketplace as a whole.
My pleasure. God bless you guys.
All right, likewise.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.